Hey, welcome to the hallway, third episode. This is Father's Day edition. Me and Chris are going to explore different ways of parenting, fatherhood, what's good about being a father, what's bad, what mistakes, and what are some great things that you can incorporate either when you become a father or hopefully when we become fathers. So again, we're just giving our opinions. So I hope you find some value out of this, and maybe you find the time to talk to your father. So for the fathers out there and fathers to be, happy Father's Day. All right, Chris. So Father's Day passed not too long ago. And I think it's an interesting holiday because sometimes they say that the mothers get a little bit more than the fathers. So it's interesting to think about, how, what you did for Father's Day. So I'm curious, did you have the opportunity to spend time with your dad on Father's Day? And if so, what did you guys do?
I did. So me and my dad, I went to Costco that morning, I went and got some steaks. Because I was over at his house the week before, and he was talking about, man, I really get me a ribeye or something, And I was like, all right, I got you for next week. And I went to Costco. I bought $60 worth of beef, and I went over there and we fired up the grill. We were chilling, just hanging out. It was kind of like an unstructured, just relax, and it was cool. I have that kind of relationship with my dad where we can just kind of relax and have a good time and eat some food and watch TV or whatever. And it was enjoyable. It was enjoyable. The only thing is that my dad is he's a well done guy. I'm just like,
wait, well done as in his steaks?
His steaks.
Oh, God.
Oh my gosh, bro. I'm sitting here. I've got this beautiful cut of meat. Beautiful cut. I don't remember what it is, but it was beautiful.
Oh, no.
Juicy, full of texture, full of meat. And I got it on the grill. I got it perfectly to where I like it. Yeah, I'm like a medium kind of guy, I got it beautiful, juicy. I pull it off. I give him a little cross-section action. He's like, yo, well, that's not done, bro. I was like, whoa, what do you mean? What are you even talking about? Oh my gosh. And then
this is done to perfection, yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, nope, we got to put it back on. And I was like, all right, this piece is mine. And I'm going to put yours back on the grill on the side. And we're just going to let it sit there and cook internally. I was like, oh my gosh. Low-key, he liked it though.
Hey, as long as he liked it.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
Yeah. Wait, so he tried the medium steak and he liked it? Or okay.
Yeah.
Dude, well done steaks, that's... Everyone shits on people for eating well done steaks, and I think you should. I mean, that's not the way to eat a steak. That's not the way to eat a steak. And I think there's the way that the fat cooks and stays into the meat, and with a well done steak, I mean, all the juices that are supposed to be inside of the steak are they're gone, man.
They're gone. They're gone.
Yeah.
You've got some of the texture and the crunchiness on the outside, depending on how you hit it with the hot sear to initially. Yeah. Sometimes you can lock in enough, so when it's well done, it's not too bad. But nah, man.
No, dude. If it's well done, it's bad. That's that's my mantra.
Yeah. So I made my little strips, and then I made the rest his style, and it was a lot of meat, a lot. Oh.
Still had leftover.
Oh, yeah.
Still had leftover.
Plenty. I was expecting my brothers to maybe stop by or something, so I overbought, made a giant pot of mac and cheese and everything in case they brought the kids, because both my brothers have kids. And yeah, they didn't come, but it's whatever. We had a good time.
So you're currently the only man in your family that is not a father as of now.
This is true. Yeah.
Yeah, because you have two brothers.
I have two brothers. And they have, one has two daughters, and one has a son and another son on the way. Actually, baby shower today. Yeah.
Wow. Oh, that's great. Mm-hmm. Are you going?
Yeah. This afternoon.
Yeah, okay.
I got some time.
Okay. That's awesome, man.
What about you? How was your Father's Day?
Mine was good. My dad, he wanted to do something, and my dad, works a lot. Because he has his own business, and also I think just because that's what he likes to do.
I get that.
So we actually did something different. We went to go play mini golf.
Nice.
So that was fun. Doing something different, with your dad, I think can be beneficial, just because it's like, I don't know, maybe you're both out of your comfort zone, or he's out of his comfort zone, and it's really interesting to see your dad which I don't know if you've ever experienced this, or maybe you have at some instance, but seeing your dad like out of his element.
Yeah, in a new
like
atmosphere.
when you yeah like when you think of your father, at least when I think of like a father figure, it's like, strong and like masculine, and like I have everything under control, like, all of these attributes which we can get into later on. But at the same time, it's like when you see them, or at least when I would see my father in a situation where he's not in control, and he's kind of like figuring it out, it's really, it's almost weird to see it. I would
unusual
say. Yeah, it is, because you're like, this is my dad, like he's supposed to handle everything.
He knows everything, right? Like,
yeah. But at the end of the day, you realize, like, like your father, just like everyone else, puts his pants on the same way, like still takes a shit just like you and me, and we're all people.
We're all figuring it out. No, I love doing that too. Like, you put your dad in like an unusual situation, just like, he didn't just handle this right away. What? He analyzed it first and like, what? He's never done this before? And it's cool too, because you begin to learn a lot about your parents' character. And I think as a young kid, it's like you said, you've got the straight fast, like, dad knows best, dad knows this. But then when you start to enter them into these other situations and you're old enough to understand what's going on, it's just like, I'm learning how my dad reacts to certain situations that I've never seen before, building his profile in my head a whole lot more. Like, he's becoming more of a fuller person, and that's with everyone too. But with someone so close like your dad, it's like, wow, okay, he's a well-rounded guy,
So, like, speaking of, fathers, like, what was the relationship that you had with your dad? Like, so think about when you were a child, like, do you think that you have a good relationship with your father? I mean, at least you guys spent time together on Father's Day, and I think that's, great. And I think we're both fortunate to have fathers in our lives, right?
Yeah, definitely. No, my dad, we had some trials when I was younger. I'll say that. I was not the great kid that I am today back then, but it happens. We go through things, but it's, your parents. It's what it is. My dad's big thing was always, take care of your brothers and take care of your mother, I think in this society we've learned that, like, husbands or dads are replaceable. We've got stepdads, we've got stepmoms, but your mom, the central of your world, is usually the constant factor. In most cases, I'll say, to generalize. But he would preach on and on to me, like, your brothers, those will always be your brothers, And somehow it gave me a detachment where my dad might not always be my dad. But I don't know. I don't know how I took that at that age, but it was an interesting take that he had, just to preach to take care of my brothers and my brothers take care of me, because that kind of unity, it's nice. I eventually learned what he was talking about, just staying tight with your family. But no, I was tight with my dad for, I'd say, growing into my older years. Our worldviews aligned a lot more, so it became easy to conversate and just relax and talk. And even when I was starting to explore, like, myself and really get to know myself and then display that new self to my parents, they were very open about it at a certain time. So working with my dad on something and talking, it became easy. So our relationship grew, and I've learned that he's a knowledgeable guy, so I've learned a lot from him. And that right there is kind of the basis of our relationship. Just, learning and building together. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point that you made, like, learning and building. I think as we get older, the camaraderie, and if you think of how men bond, and that's what I've, like, been starting to think about, like, how do we bond? Like, because men and women bond in different ways, at least from my experience, from what I've seen, like, from what I've been exposed to. I think that women can sit around and, talk and, have drinks and do this, which, don't get me wrong, men can do that too.
Yeah.
But I think that if you really want to have a bond with a man, I feel like doing something with each other is productive, can be, a strong bonding experience, whether it's with your brothers, whether it's with your father, whether it's with your friends.
Yep.
And it's almost like, for lack of a better example, I mean, maybe it's a good example, I don't know, but like building something, right? Like my buddy Alex, which Alex, he's remodeling his house, and he invites me over every once in a while. I have a couple of beers, I help him out for half a day or whatever it is, and being able to be there and like learn from him and like put something together where it's like, yo, like I'm looking at his house and it's like I helped put up this wall.
Yeah.
And it's like and you're solving problems, and you're like, oh, like, well, what if we did it this way? Oh, okay, we could cut this out and do it this, and like, oh, blah 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 blah. So and it's I think it's a different bonding experience. And I think what happens is, touching on the relationship with my father, is that he's not like the best with kids, and I think that he was there in my life. Like he's always been there in my life. And obviously, throughout life, which I'm sure you've experienced, there's times of closeness and times of apartness.
Definitely.
Based on everyone's own path and individual experiences. But as I've gotten older, and similar to you, I've been able to talk to him more, because it's almost like, and I think that me and you are at the point in our lives, and as a man, when we're not kids anymore, right? Like we're men, we're young men. And I think that once you really start to have a grasp on the world, and you're like taking care of your own shit, right? Your father becomes like, I wouldn't say something as much as a friend, but yes, a friend, but almost like, a springboard, not a springboard, but like a soundboard, or like a guidance system. It's kind of like, hey, like, okay, this is what you're doing. Like, this is what, I would do. This is how I would approach it. This is my opinion. And I think that it's good to be able to talk about those things and challenge those things, especially like, when you're going through a ton of things in life. Like it's always good to have like that person, that you can, reflect and, bounce things off of. But what's crazy? It's like some people don't have those figures in their lives.
Yeah, so I think, most people yearn for that type of connection, but might not find it through your parents. So I think most people find it in some form or fashion, whether it be like an idol, like a Hollywood star or something. I'll heed the words, every word from Kim Kardashian's mouth. Oh, Lord Kim,
oh God.
Or something like
God.
that. I think we all kind of feel for that or want something of that sort. So from your parents, maybe not, but from others, I'm sure you're getting some form of it.
Yeah. So kind of diving deeper into this, father element. So like what do you think makes a good father? Like what qualities and what characteristics? So as you kind of ponder on that, something that I think about when I think of a father is I think of someone who's like strong, right? Strong quotes, but someone who it's, level-headed, can protect his family.
Yep.
Can provide for his family, and when I say level-headed, I think life tends to throw a lot of things at you. And when you're able to control your emotions, think about a solution, and then say, okay, this is what we need to do in order to get the best outcome. That is a skill that I think people, it's tough to
attain.
Harness that. Yeah. And to really, in situations where there's potentially high pressure and, families involved and who knows, maybe even a dangerous situation, having the ability to kind of like, keep your focus. And it's like, okay, let me think through this. Right.
Yeah. That's exactly what I think. When people ask me who's my emergency contact, I'm like, I'm not putting my mom down. My emergency contact is my dad. My dad will let my mom know. My mom,
Yeah.
she doesn't answer her phone sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
You're right, man. You're right.
The phone is dead, sitting on the counter somewhere.
That's right. Because she's in the garden or doing some other
Exactly.
shit. Like,
She's
yeah,
off
yeah.
and about doing whatever, But my
Yeah.
dad, I know I can call him, and if there's a situation, it's okay. We're in situation mindset. We're in situation mode. Let's go ahead and diagnose the problem and then get going. So, like
Yeah.
my dad, he's an aircraft mechanic, so he's got that engineering style. Let's analyze, process, and then assess, and then create an action plan, create the action plan, roadblocks, all right, great, new action plan. Like he's very, very focused and goal oriented, and I think that's where I kind of get some of my, traits from. And that right there is exactly what you're talking about. He's able to dive into a problem and create a solution or find the avenue without the interference from, oh man, well, what if we do this and it hurts his feelings or something like that. It's okay. We already analyzed all that. It's all in there already, and we're streamlining a plan.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where I see like parts of fatherhood is just being able to handle business like that.
Yeah.
And then there's the other part too.
Exactly, and that's what I was about to jump off into. I think, the way that not men are treated, but let's just say, I think generally, this is a strong generalization, but men are viewed as, hey, we need to be the problem solvers. Usually we need to be the ones that has a plan. We need to be the one that's able to provide. Basically, some of the traits that I just mentioned earlier. And I think that, having those traits are very admirable.
Yeah.
I think sometimes, though, that we focus so much on, as men, on delivering, literally delivering.
Yeah.
At least men who are driven and focused, and I feel like guys like us who really want to do something with our lives. We're not just kind of flopping around or whatever. But I think we focus so much on that element that the emotional element of maybe being a husband and being a great relationship partner and being a emotionally supporting your kids and giving them the validation and the being the rock that they need, not only on that provider level, but also on that, like, hey, I'm your dad, I have your back, like, I love you,
I'm here for you.
All of these things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I saw this video the other day, and it was this guy talking about which I almost think this way too. It's like, I see actions are louder than words, right?
Yes.
I'm providing for you, like, okay, like I'm taking care of my family. I cook for them. I do this, I do that, and sometimes we think that people think that we love them or that we care about them or whatever through our actions and the things that we do. But what you realize is that a lot of people sometimes need that, like, that you to say things and you to kind of like open up with your words. And that's becoming like pretty important. And I think it's very important when you have children, like, and, talking to them and being with them. Yeah.
Nowadays,
what do you think?
You kind of, I feel like you have to open up a little bit more. But back in the old days, I'll use an example. I got in trouble in, I think it was third grade. Third grade, I was messing around on the playground or something like that. I got in trouble for doing something, and I got in-school suspension. And I think this kid was talking crap, and he like punched me, and then I punched him back, but I was the bigger kid, so I got in more trouble.
Ooh, yeah.
And of course, nobody saw him throw the first punch. So
Of course.
I got in trouble. I got sent to the principal's office. My dad got called in. He's in the office, and they're in there talking with the principal for a little while, and then my dad opens the door or something, and he's like, "Christopher, come on in." I was like, "Come on in." I'm like, "I'm so sorry, Dad. I didn't mean to do any of this." I just got it all over my face, and then next thing I know, my dad, he's not talking about the bad things I did. He is defending me. He is fighting for me. Like, that right there, that was one of the moments when I knew, like, man, my dad really loves me. He fought for me in a way that I've never felt. I mean, at a young age, I didn't have any experiences where I needed it, right? Mm-hmm. So this was the first instance I saw my dad in full protector mode for me, verbally against someone else for me. And that right there, it was a big shock to me. I'd never felt it before. I was kind of uneasy about my dad, just he's your dad.
Yeah.
But
He's your
then
dad. Yeah.
when he does that, and that for me was an action that was whoa, whoa. He's like, you're gonna sit here and accuse my son of doing this, and oh man, he went all kinds of off on them on my behalf, and that right there was in the moment, it was the embodiment of the dad that I needed, and he did it for me, and that was
awesome.
wonderful.
I love that, man. I love that. And it's funny that you mentioned that story. I have a similar story where, what was it? It wasn't necessarily a fight that I got into, but it was this kid. It was in school. I think it might have been second grade. And basically, like, that was when wrestling. Wrestling was really big. WWE, all this stuff, right? And then
we all want to do it, right?
We want to do it, right? So then, he's like, yeah, we're talking about, I think it was The Undertaker, right? Like The Undertaker and like choke slamming. He's like, oh yeah, let's do it. And I was a bigger kid as well. Yeah. I'm 6'3" now. You're like what, 6 foot, 6'2",
6'1",
something like that. Yeah. And he's like, oh yeah, let's choke slam. I'm like, yeah, let's do it, dude. So I picked this kid up, like, boom, onto the ground, and then he starts crying, like all this stuff. Reports me to the teacher, whatever.
Oh my!
And a similar situation. Go to the principal's office. I'd had like an art project that I got back from school, and I got like an A, and I was like holding on to it, and I was like, oh my god, like I'm gonna show him this A. Hopefully he doesn't kill me. Then it's just the surprising, like, after that, the surprising calmness he had of the situation, right? Where it was like, I don't know. It's, you think of it, and you think of like a father, and it's like, I would rather my son, like something like that physical where I have to like maintain it, rather than like, oh, like he was, I don't know, like doing, I don't know, like talking or being disruptive or whatever. It's like, no, like, yeah, I had to go to the principal's office because my son choke slams another kid, and it's like, as a dad, you're like, oh shit, my kid's a badass,
right? But he handled the situation,
Yeah, we talked about it, and I think to your story that, like, having those moments where you felt like, your father was there for you is like huge.
Big.
I think like that shapes, and that like shapes you. As a man, like as you grow up, it's like, yo, like this is the type of father that I want to be. And I think that we're talking a lot about the things that our dads did well, right? And that, moments that we're glad that they were there. And I think it's interesting to also see the other side. So like, what are some mistakes that maybe not directly your father made, or maybe some that your father did make, but also maybe that you've seen other fathers make, like, where do you, so I think there's a lot of good qualities that we touched on, but what do you think some mistakes that we can discuss now that we should avoid because I think, you want to have a family, right? I want to have a family. So, and I think, being a father, we're going to run into this. So what would you do differently, and what are some situations that, you would do things differently?
So when I was younger, my dad had strictly the get it done mindset. So the emotion was less apparent, a lot less apparent, for many, many years. And I think it's because he was working a lot. He was trying to establish himself financially and his family financially. And that has been a big mover for him, money oriented. And that's why I'm kind of the same way. But I think the emotion part sort of fell off the truck and didn't make it back till a little later, which I'm happy it made it back, because there were rough times with my parents in their marriage, and it somewhat fell down to me in one or two situations. And to see that kind of like argument going on between my parents and my mom and my dad, and being strong-headed to each other, and it's just like, whoa, hey, what is going on? We're not supposed to be doing this. Loving parents don't do this kind of fighting. What? And that right there, I'm thinking of one example specifically, but it kind of shapes your ideology of your dad, just like the good thing that happened. And I'm thinking about this all the time. All my dad stood up for me. It's now my dad is also this person. And I know this is something that he is capable of, this type of argument, this type of what I saw as like hatred in the moment. Like this is possible from him. And I don't think it's necessarily a terrible thing to see, but at the time, it's not something that I wish I had seen. But now I know that, okay, a person, being a well rounded person, you're not all just good, you know? You're not all just happy, good times. Most people that we have the propensity to go down that alley, and knowing when to go there and when to come back is all part of, understanding yourself and your limits and whatnot. But that's one thing that I think at that age I didn't need to see from my dad.
Do you think so? And I think that's an interesting situation where, it's not necessarily dependent on anything that you did in your relationship with him, but more like a situation that you saw him in. So, and obviously we don't know, the emotions that might have been going through their head, or maybe any sort of backstory that kind of built up to that moment. But if you think that, I think it's more of a reflection, right? Looking at how that impacted you. Yes. And saying, okay, like, if I were in this situation where I was having, an extremely heated discussion with my wife, right? Like, how would you go about, what would you do differently in that situation? And I think it almost comes down to, and I'd like to hear your opinion, but I think it really circles back to the level head. I think that
yes.
Even if we are experiencing, which I'm guilty of this, I'm sure you're guilty of this in any sort of, discussion or argument that you may have, but sometimes we let our emotions like hold us, and we let our stubbornness hold us. And we sometimes even let the emotions of other people like dictate our emotions.
We do.
And I think we do. And I think that, if it's a hard skill to grasp, but that level head, and always having that level head, even if people are pressing you, even if people are like, you have to be, it's almost like you have to be the emotional leader. And I'm not saying lack of emotion. I'm saying, like, you have to lead conversations by like with the tonality that you want them to be. Yeah. And it's like, I saw this on another thing. It's like, because if someone is pressing and getting riled up, like, and you're the one that's relaxed and you continue to be relaxed, you are the leader, and you will see them start to, kind of simmer down. Because if it's like, you always hear the same thing. You're fighting fire with fire. You're putting gas on fire. If you can be, if
fire hydrant,
if that fire is raging, and if you can kind of like, start to take the oxygen away because you're just, take the fuel away, then you can be that emotional leader. And it's difficult sometimes, man, because sometimes shit goes down and you're just like, like you're feeling it. But I think practicing that level head and awareness is constantly is,
it is.
I think is,
it's a thing that I think we should all try to master, but nobody's perfect. So
yes,
we'll fall, we'll fail, but it's good when you can sit back and think. My ex-girlfriend broke up with me, or I broke up with my ex-girlfriend a few months ago, and it was some news of cheating and whatever, and I was like, okay, well, all right, let's sit back, go ahead and just tell me all the facts, and we'll work from there, right? And that's kind of where I get my situational, like, straightforwardness. Just let it all out so I can hear all the factors, and then I'll analyze what I want to do next, or what you want to do next, and we'll come back together. And that's part of the communication thing too. But when we can just let the numbers out, look at all the numbers, throw it in a spreadsheet, like let's put it in Excel and work out every piece, work out every little bit of problem, every little bit of whatever, and then we'll go from there. I think that's a major skill to have, and keeping a cool head while you're doing all of that. And de-escalating, like you were saying before, conversation, or kind of controlling conversation, allows you to be the one to lead. So if me and you are fighting and you start really going off on a tangent, and then I start to pull back my conversation from, egging you on to more of like a, okay, but so you're still, climbing, and then I start using those de-escalation words to kind of bring you back down. I'm now leading you back where I want the conversation to go, because I'm no longer interested in the tangent you're taking. And
Yeah.
that's a very important skill to have. A bad example was this week, right? So I'm sitting at my desk. The big boss walks in, and he goes, "Hey, so this guy you hired the other day to work under you, what's your plans for him?" And I said, well, I'm planning to ramp him down, once we see that the trend of workload is going down." And he said, "Okay, well, can we do it by the end of the month?" And I was like, probably, but let me look at the numbers and get back to you. He says, "Okay," and he comes back to me and says, "Well, you'll be in charge of letting him go and everything, and you'll handle all that." I'm like, yeah, sure, yeah, no problem. And for me, my initial response to the boss asking me to do something is, "Yes, boss, no problem. Yes, boss, yeah, I'll do whatever you need me to do, boss. No problem," because I'm trying to keep my job, save face. And then I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute. Yo, it's like the 25th, the 26th. That's like 4 or 5 days. I just agreed to like...
You committed.
Yeah, I did. I told him, yes, I did mention I'd look at the numbers and then come back, but I didn't mention it strong enough. So I wasn't leading the conversation. I kind of fell into the position of, yes, boss, yes, boss, yes, boss. And in that, I'm now hurting myself because I'm going to lose an employee.
Yeah.
So I kind of lost track of the conversation and lost control because I didn't take the strong offensive and go, okay, and start to steer the conversation. I lost control a little bit, and in that it hurt me.
Yeah.
But, eventually I looped back around and I was able to analyze what I did. Because this conversation, I just laid it out in probably 30 seconds, and that's about as short as it was. It was a 30-second, because when my boss comes to me, it's a done. Whatever you need, done. Whatever you need, done. 30 seconds. Get out of the room. I'll get it done. I'll come back to you. And then I sat there and I was like, wait a minute. I ran some reports. I came back with the knowledge and I said, well, actually, from what I said earlier, I can't do that. Here's the numbers to present why,
I think that's a great point around, being in business and, with your job and generally, and falling into that trap of being the yes man.
Yeah.
I think it can be beneficial when you especially if the decisions are clear, everything is clear, like this is what we need to do. Okay. It makes sense.
Yeah.
Hey, this is what I need you to do. Like fill out this report, blah, blah, blah. Cause this is the report that we have every month. Yes. Okay. I'll get it done.
Yeah.
But when it comes to, I don't know, just any sort of other situation, and this can apply to many situations, but sometimes being that yes man isn't always the best road to travel, right? Because if you want to be, sometimes your boss needs to be challenged, and obviously, it's dependent on the relationship that you have with this person, their leadership style. But if you think that, things should be different, right? You should speak up and challenge that. And I think it's commitment, right? And I think what you were talking about earlier, and I think it might have been before we turned on the mic, but you were saying how you were using words that can help basically let them know that, yes, this could happen, but this could happen as well. So, okay. And, maybe even breaking down your situation, I need to run the numbers. This is what I think, so you kind of gave yourself that out. Yes. Like, okay, yes, I see what you want. I'm going to try to do that. Let me take a look at, the situation itself, and then I can get back to you. Yeah. So you can kind of like, so you're taking the commitment in a way, but you're also giving yourself that opportunity to reflect on the situation itself and then come back with data or with another solution and say, hey, I can't do it because of this.
Yeah, and that's something I tried to live by. I work in the IT community, and when someone says my computer's not working, when will it be ready? And I really don't know. I'll say it should be ready between Monday and Wednesday. It should do this for you, and that's kind of how you CYA. You got to cover your ass a little bit, but then also if I just don't know in the moment, I can give you a rough, and then we'll come back to it. But being able to not say, yes, it will do this, and just like, I've learned not to do that. I got burned way too many times telling people, "Yep, I'll be there at exactly 1:05.01 a.m." I was like, and I show up at 1:06. It's like, you were supposed to be here on time. Well, actually, I said I should be there at 1:05.
Yeah.
You know, and I try to use that throughout my life, everywhere, just to make sure I don't make any assurances, that I can't keep.
Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense. So bringing it back to father, so I think what we were talking about was was mistakes, and one thing that I'd like to talk about is mistakes that I've seen that fathers make. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that we get caught up in is we want our sons or daughters to be the best, and we want to give them everything. We hold them to such a high standard that it's like, we need to make sure that you're, doing everything that you need to do, and you need to do this and you need to do that because you're going to, blah, 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 blah. And I think that that's a mistake that I've seen. It's like, just because I played basketball, right, doesn't mean my kid's going to like basketball, nor should I expect him to be better at me or worse than me or whatever it is, if that's an interest that he has. And I think with my father, I felt like he was hard on me sometimes, like hard. And I think it was, a mix of the way that he was brought up and how, his previous experiences. And I think that if I become a father, I think that you should expect,
greatness.
You should have high expectations for your children. And I think that you should enable them to be the best that they can be. But, there's a difference between enabling them and pushing them, too hard.
And imposing your ideologies of what they should be. Yeah, no, there's definitely an argument for that. But on the flip side, I've got the exact same treatment, and I have 3 iterations of what happened based off of that treatment. So, it's me and my 2 brothers. I would say we most of the time we got pretty fair and even treatment from our parents, right? And we all turned out drastically different. So my dad is the type to, okay, you need to have straight A's. You need to have straight A's because this is what's going to take you through life. And my only job in this life is to get you to a point where you're self-sufficient. That is his target. And like I said, he's a goal-oriented guy. That is his goal. Yeah. Stepping stones, milestone 1 to get there is get good grades, get through school. And my brother, when he got into college, he was struggling with trying to find a major that really spoke to him, right? And he had done like this nursing program in high school, and then he kind of liked it, and then he went to college and was like, I don't know what I want to do. And my dad's like, do nursing. You have the background. You wanted to do it before. Stop acting up. Time is coming to choose a major. He's 2nd year in college. Time is coming to choose a major. Do it. Stop acting a fool. Get it done. And my brother, being the anti, I don't want to follow what dad says, he goes and he leaves home. He moves out because he gets into an argument about why he doesn't want to do nursing and this and that, and why he, I want to choose. I want to be free and be my own person. And I'm just like, dude, your dad is going to pay for you to go to school. You know how many people don't have that opportunity? Even if you don't like it, just take the path because you don't have another path right now. That was my excuse. I'm just, hey, everything's paid for you. Everything's paid. Why move out, go through the struggle of having to do it by yourself, and you don't even know what you want to do yet? So follow this path until you figure something out. And then we can discuss it. It becomes a conversation. But no, he's strong-headed. I'm moving out. I don't want to follow what dad says. Dad is asking too much of me, yada, yada, yada. And then I was like, all right, man. Not what I would have done, but whatever you got to do for you. And then he leaves. He joins the military. He comes back, and then he goes, oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to get my degree. What you getting your degree in? Nursing.
Dude, but you know what? Sometimes people need to take that path. Like,
Yeah.
they need to, like, just go through it, man. You know, like, sometimes people don't think that way. They think that they want to do something different. They don't know.
Yeah.
But maybe taking that example, do you think that if your dad would have approached it and would have, you know, maybe took the time to, instead of like grab and, I'm just, you know, putting words to it, but like grab and say, no, you know, pushing and say, no, you need to do this, but more kind of like, almost like bumpers on a bowling, right? Where like, how can you almost guide instead of, and I think that that's where like it becomes important, and you have to like take your time, and you have to, you know, talk about their emotions. It's like for us, and I think for guys that are like straight shooters, it's like the answer's clear. I've thought about it, you know, in this specific example, and it's so funny that's a really good story. That it's so funny that after all that, he's going to do the same thing. But, you know, you did nursing, like, I'm paying for your school, like, just do a nurse. It's a good career. It's in demand. Like, you already had interest in this. You're already prepared. Like, you're going to do great. Like, just do it. The answer for us is it's sitting on a platter.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's sitting on a platter. But for them, it's like, you know, maybe there's a nice, you know, medium steak, a nice ribeye sitting there on a platter, but they're like, you know what? I feel like chicken tenders. And you're like, bro, I sit here and made this, you know, made this great steak. Like, you need to enjoy this steak. Like, I'm telling you, the steak is so good. He's like, no, I like chicken tenders, right? But how do you, I guess, so my point, you know, circling back, what can we do and how can we approach guiding our children instead of like telling them? Because I think that's where a lot of people, really, not like fathers, but like people in general, were just like, yeah, here's the answer, instead of like exploring it with them. And I think one of the greatest ways, at least that I've seen for guiding, especially when you're talking about conversations, you're talking about ideas, all this stuff, is questions.
Yeah.
So you can ask them guiding questions, and that can lead. So as an example, it's like, you know, hey, like, you know, thinking about going to get something to eat tonight. I was thinking about, you know, burgers or sushi. Like, what do you think? So for me, it's cool. Like, okay, I want burgers or I want sushi, right? I'm cool with both of those options. And now I give you that choice, and I've already guided you, given you limited option, and saying, hey, yeah, so let's do this, right? What do you think? And kind of giving you that choice. And, you know, and that maybe that's a very simple example compared to, you know, a career path, but you could almost say that it would take time, but there's a series of conversations that you can have where instead of like saying, no, you should do this, let's discuss it. Okay, if you were to do it, I mean, what else are you interested in?
Yeah.
How would you know what I mean? And I think that that's what we can do, like, as people and as fathers, as, you know, friends, as anything. It's like, you know, those guiding questions. That's I think is a way to handle it. What do you think?
So in my experience, this particular instance, I tried to be that moderator, that voice to my brother, because I agreed with my dad that he should have done nursing, but I wanted to hear his reasoning. I wanted to break it down, because my dad he's a directive guy. I give you a directive, you follow the directive. And I tried to sort of translate that into the more guidance thing when I was talking with him directly. So I sat my brother down and we talked, and I said, so tell me, why don't you want to do this? Couldn't give me a straight answer. Tell me how what you're going to do instead. Couldn't give me a straight answer. So some people are perceptible to the, okay, all right, you've kind of broken down the conversation and broken down.
See, but I want to interrupt you, because I think that the questions that you asked were more of a, so in my opinion, right, were more of a grill. So the two examples that you gave is more of like, okay, well, what's your plan? What are you going to do instead? Why don't you want?
Yeah.
It's instead of like, and if you think of it, at least how sorry, I want to let you finish, but I just wanted to make this point, is that it's more like instead of like grilling them and asking them for the decisions of what they're going to make, it's think of it as like a co-creation. It's like, okay, well, what if you know, have you thought about this? Or like, what would you do instead? Like, I was thinking, you know, if you weren't going to do nursing, like, what are you interested in? You know, and you're almost kind of like helping them get to the solution rather than like asking, because, you know, it's funny that you're your father's son, right? Because you're, okay, well, what if you're not going to do this, then what are you going to do? What are you going to do instead? What else are you interested in? You're asking them, and you're expecting them to come up with these answers, but maybe they haven't even thought about that. And I think that that's where you can frame your questions and you can develop it together. It's like you can ask them the right questions to pull out bits of information that they can put together themselves. So, and I already gave an example earlier, so I'm not going to give, I don't want to go in circles, but that's.
No, you're right. The approach that I lean to is you've got a plan, let's blow holes in it. Tell me why this isn't going to work. Or I'm going to give you the right questions so you can see that your plan is not going to work. And that's kind of the way my dad has done it. So that's kind of the way that I've seen to do it. But you're right, where you can sort of build. But I think at the same time, we're all reaching the same goal. But you're right. It's a little bit of the tone of how you're doing it.
It's the how, right?
Yeah.
How are you going about it?
It's the how. It's the how. So I've come across that before where it's, okay, well, we know we have a goal of, I want you to be self-sufficient and get a job, or whatever it is to reach this, right? Your way is more of a collaborative, like you were saying. Let's work it. Let's work the problem. Let's work what we have, and then slowly divine.
Let's develop it together.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that makes sense. That makes sense. That is probably a way that works for most people. And
the problem is that I think it's as the questioner, you really have to be patient.
Yeah.
And you have to think, and you have to be you have to understand that it's going to take time.
Yeah.
Especially with something like that, where it's like, okay, you're trying to influence as to, what major you're going to take. This isn't a conversation that you have in an evening. This isn't a conversation that you have in a month. This is something that takes place over 3 or 4 months, several conversations, that you guys are discussing and, reflecting and coming back. And, so it's a lot of these situations, it's not fast, right? And then that's where it can get frustrating, because you're dealing with emotions, you're all these things, and it's, so
and then
it's
you
not
throw
quick.
money at it too, because all these courses, they cost money, and they have their own timeline. So you're having to deal with the timeline of this, and am I going to pay for this and keep doing that? Or, it's all of the pressure on top of it as well. And the big part of it is understanding the person that you're talking to, understanding how the person you're talking to will perceive the next question that you ask. And will they take that next question, and will we begin to divine our path from his answer? Or is the question I'm about to ask about to just take us off somewhere else where we don't need to be? So controlling the conversation and your emotions to allow the conversation to be productive is important.
It's a skill.
It is, yeah. It
takes practice.
Yeah.
It takes practice, man. And I think that, it's but I think the tone, generally guiding questions, if, you can get guiding questions right, you can really, and you have the time and you have the patience, you can get the result that you want. I mean, because it's a good methodology. And I think that that's what I'd like to incorporate, when I become a father, more of like, okay, how can I guide my children rather than, tell them what they need to do? Because I think it's easy. Yeah, you don't want to create, it's almost like you don't want to create soldiers. You want to create independent, you want to create like captains or whatever, right? It's like, you want them to be able to think about strategy. You want them to be able to think about like, okay, what are my other options? And like, cause that's what life is. Life is weighing options and making decisions. If you're a soldier, you don't make any decisions, man. You make a decision as to when you're going to shit and when you're going to, I don't know, do in your free time, right? But everything else is, I'm going to tell you what to do, where to be, where to go. Like, there's no independent thought. And I think the more that you can get them to think independently about the decisions that they make and what they should do, is really important. One thing that also I wanted to touch on, and it just came to my mind, is there's a TED Talk about this guy from Canada, but the TED Talk is called "Let's Teach Our Kids to Be Entrepreneurs." And what he, to kind of sum it up, he was a longtime entrepreneur, and he executed specific strategies with his kids in order to get them to kind of think of what I was talking about earlier. So what do I mean? So as an example, he would say, okay, you can tell your kid, yes, or your child, hey, you need to take out the trash. The trash comes out every Thursday. That's your responsibility. You do it every week. I give you $5. I give you $10. I don't know, whatever it is. You miss it. If we miss trash day, you don't get your money. That's it. So everything is already like, here's your job. Here's your box. Everything's predefined. Like, this is your responsibility to do it, which I think is good. Structure is good. At the same time, though, he challenges them to find opportunities in the house and bring it to, us or the parents or the parental figure, whatever they may be. Mm-hmm. And then say, hey, dad, hey, mom, hey, other dad, right? Whatever, if they adopt children, whatever it may be. And like, I see this opportunity. Like, I see the lawn's getting a little bit long. I see that the trash is building up. I see that the floor's getting a little bit dirty. There seems to be some dust here, or there, anything. Like, hey, like I see the neighbors' lawns are getting, long. Mm-hmm. And then they bring, what he tries to get them to do is bring these opportunities to him. Okay. And then you say, okay, like the lawn is getting a little bit long. We do need to mow it. I don't want to do it. Do you? And like, yeah, Dad, I do. And then you're like, okay, well, how much? And then you're like, then the kid, now they're going to have to assess the time, the effort that it's going to take, and what value does that have? And now, is the time and effort and everything that they did worth the value that they're charging, right? So then your kid's like, oh, I don't know, maybe they're smart, right? And they're going to aim high. They're going to be like, oh, I'll do it this weekend for $40. And I don't know, maybe you have not that big of a yard, right? Let's just say. And you're like, whoa, $40. I don't know. I mean, the lawn's not that big. You have all of the equipment's there. I could do it myself. I mean, I don't need to. So then you kind of start to get into like this negotiation. Obviously, don't push them too hard in the negotiation. But my point is, let me make my point, is that, give them opportunities to find things and to think and to negotiate and to, get them to be thinkers. And instead of like defining their box, let them define the box. And I think you can start like doing those things at a young age. And as soon as as soon as I watched that TED Talk, I was like, dude, that's fucking revolutionary. You know what I mean? Like, think about that, dude. Yeah. Think about that. Instead of telling your kid, it's like, okay, dude, you want to go to the movies? Like, I don't know, they're 13 or whatever, they can't get a job. It's like, okay, dude, you want to go to the movies? Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to do it? How are you going to do it? And then there's opportunities here. Like, you can, what are you going to find? How are you going to do it? Right. Yeah. And obviously, give them money sometimes, right? Like, when they're whatever, but.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. That's interesting though, because my parents were I don't want to say the complete opposite, but my parents didn't believe in what's it called, allowances. My parents didn't believe in allowances, and they didn't believe in paying their children for things that they should just do. So things they should just do is cutting
to take care of the house, right? That's what we need to do in order to keep the house running. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
So they hit me with the collective, like, hey, you live here, man. Have some pride in where you live, and hey, you live here rent free. So that was always the argument. It's, hey, you want allowance? The allowance, you ate it already. Whoops.
That's an interesting point. And then now, I mean, so maybe you could do it like. So let's take this idea, right? So maybe you could do the smaller things, like finding the opportunities when they're a little bit younger, but maybe when they get a little bit older, like the example, like 12, 13, 14, where they have some independence, they can walk around the neighborhood, right? They can do their thing. Like maybe they start to find, maybe we could encourage them to find other opportunities like in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
It's like doing stuff online, like, hey, here's hey, Dad, can I get I'm getting into investing, or I don't know, like, Dad, I need, capital in order to start distributing papers or mowing lawns or washing cars or whatever. And then it's like, okay, like, that's cool, and maybe, and it's almost, but I think like you can't depend on them to do that themselves. I think, coming back to the guiding, it's like, how can you guide them? And that can maybe be through questions. Like if they want to go to the, going back to the guiding questions, hey, like you want to go to the movies. Okay. Like, how are we going to make that happen? Right. Yeah. What are we going to do to make that happen?
How much
like
does it cost?
Can help you. Yeah. How much does it cost?
How are you going to get there? Have you decided on your method of transportation? Do you have access to this? Do you need that? And that's kind of building the situation in their heads. Because they're a lot of times when you're young, it's, I have a target. I'm going to the movies. I haven't figured out how I'm going to go to the movies, but John's going to the movies. I'm going to the movies with John. And it's,
or some chick's going to the movies, right? And you're like, yo, let's go.
Mind is set. I'm going. I don't know how yet, but I'm going to ask my mom, and she's going to figure it all out for me. But instead, mom's going to open the conversation for you to possibly figure it out for yourself. And that makes sense. I didn't get the conversation a lot of how to do it. I got more of the, I want to do this. Mom and dad said they won't do this. Or mom and dad said they'll do this much, but I want this much. So I internally started to learn that I have to fill this gap myself. And in order to achieve what I want, I have to now go and find this money or go and find this on my own, because I was able to get support to a limit or, to a point, and now I have to find the other support from somewhere else or support myself. And I think that drove a lot of my career path even. I got support up to here, and then the rest I need to, And that I think I like that approach, because then my parents aren't just giving me everything, and then I'm not completely on my own. But then again, it takes a lot of self-motivation and self-determination to get what you want, to really understand, okay, this is what I want. My mom or dad will encourage me to get what I want and give me maybe what they can to help me reach my goal, and then maybe help me find solutions where I can bridge this gap. And now it's a cooperative thing instead of me just giving you things. And I think that's starting, or that's how you get a spoiled kid sometimes. You just, yes, I want this, mom, dad, give this. And I think that right there, I don't think I want to be that type of parent, I want to bridge the gap or help them bridge the gap. Get them to a point, a starting point, and say, okay, how are we going to do this together? To start to teach them those things, because I've learned recently that I like teaching. That I've been teaching a class or two here and there, and I've learned that I actually enjoy imparting knowledge. So that's kind of where I see myself on that one.
Yeah. No, and I think that's great. I think that's a really good approach. It's like maybe making that more specific, so the levels of support that you give, that like doing the movies example. Okay, going to the movies at 8 p.m. on a Friday, whatever it is. Okay, you're 13 or 14 years old. Movie costs $20 if you want the ticket and popcorn. Probably more than that if you want ticket and popcorn. But
nowadays.
but it's like, okay, and as a parent, you're kind of like, okay, well, I can give you a ride. I can pick you up. I can maybe, I have $5. Here's $5 towards that. And then it's like, okay, how are you going to do the rest? And obviously, I think it's a balance. So
yeah,
that's the point that I wanted to make. So it's like, okay, are you gonna make your kid every single time like they want to do anything at all? You're gonna be like, all right, bro, like,
figure it out.
What's gonna happen?
It's all new, bro.
Exactly. And I think there's like, the example that I use, because I was very fortunate. My parents put me into a lot of sports leagues, which I think, organized sports is great for children, and I would love to give my children the opportunity to do organized sports, and not just like when you're 5, like try to do it like as they're becoming themselves, because I think it can give that camaraderie, and especially if you do something like a high school or a travel league, like where they're where they're like if you're traveling with the team and like all this stuff, like those, like I've had experiences during like those times where maybe my parents aren't around, but all these guys and girls, right, when I was in high school that are my age, that were all like coming our own in these situations that could negatively impact you, could positively impact you, but it gives you those social skills, that athletic ability, all these things that I think can elevate you. And my point is that if your kid like wants to play basketball, right, in the league, I don't know, like let's say for a city league, that's 8 weeks, or I don't know, whatever. It's like $100 or $150. I don't even know the prices, but are you going to be like, oh, well, how are you going to get the $150 to play ball? It's like, no, it's like, I want my kid to do, if they're interested, I'm going to pay the $100 or $150, whatever it is. I'm going to take them to the games. I'm going to do these things.
Get you some new shoes or whatever. I'll start to set you up.
Yeah, of course.
I think the approach I'd take, just spitballing, is I would say,
sure.
Okay, so you want to do this, right? You're going to tell me 6 weeks in advance that you want to go to this football camp, whatever. All right. You told me 6 weeks ahead. I told you, okay, I'll do this, but maybe give them the blanket of, I'll pay $5, or I'll give you 20% of whatever the cost is, and then I want you to try and get to at least 40% of the cost. And then everything after that, I will try to cover. But I need to see that you're working towards this goal as much as I am. Because I went to work and I made this money. And I'm giving it to you. Now I need to see you work so we can achieve this goal together. So maybe that's an avenue you can take at a certain age, of course, where they're able to understand it. And say, okay, I'll give you $20. I need to see you work from now to 5 weeks to try and achieve $40. And then whatever you don't have at the end, I can help you out.
Or maybe just give them half, right? Just be like, here's half, you're responsible for the other half.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, it's $200, here's $100, like, get the other 100 and see what they come up with. And if they fall flat, like, all right, dude, I still want you to do the football camp, here you go.
Exactly.
But almost like giving that scarcity mindset and saying like, okay, yeah, here's 100, and you have to come up with the other $100.
Yeah.
And then, and being like, yo, if you don't come up with this other $100, you're not going to go.
You're out.
Right? And, you tell them that. It's like, obviously you want them to, yeah. But then you can almost say, okay, well, you have $100. And then now comes that guiding question, right? So what can we do with this $100? Do you think we could use it to like make more money? Like what or, maybe, you don't want to risk it. So what else would you do? And then you can kind of like open up that conversation. Let's figure it out.
Yeah.
Right. And then your kid's going to be like, screw you, dad. Like, just give me the other $100, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like that balance. So
Exactly.
like, okay, I think it's inappropriate sometimes and like you should definitely do it.
Yeah.
But I don't think it should be for like every
Everything.
single
No,
thing.
no.
Yeah.
You can open it up, and it's just to get the mind thinking, get the mind working about
Yeah.
how we're going to do this. How am I going to make sure that my kid is financially responsible so he doesn't just start throwing money? Because, when you're a kid, you see mom swipe the magic plastic, and it's just like, oh.
That's right.
Groceries.
And all you know is food going in your mouth, man.
Yep.
That's all you know.
That's all you know, but there's so much.
Dude,
more.
when I was a kid, you know what's crazy? Like, if you want to be the house, like, did you ever have like a house when you were a kid and it's like, maybe that was like that friend's house that everyone went to.
Oh,
everyone
yeah.
goes to that dude, yeah. Everyone has that friend.
It was Mark.
And I tell you what, it was what?
It was Mark. His name was Mark.
Mark.
Yeah,
For
Mark's
my friend,
house.
his name is Luke. Yeah, Luke's house. That's what it was, man. It's still to this day, man. To this
Yep.
day, it's crazy. But if you want to be that house, I think there's a simple way to do that. Mm-hmm. If you really want to be that house, all you got to do is feed them.
Yeah.
That's all you got to do, man.
Yeah.
That's all you have to do. If you
Yep.
feed these kids, they will come back forever.
Over and over and over again. Oh
That's how it was at
gosh.
Mark's house, right?
Yeah.
That's how it was at Mark's house. That's how it was at Luke's house.
Yo.
Like, we ate, bro.
They had snacks. My mom is a nurse. She's like the healthiest person ever when it was like growing up. So the snacks we had was like vegan chips and other shit like that. And
It's like bullshit. It's like, come on, give me a goddamn fruit roll up.
Like, come on! She never bought fruit roll-ups. I've never seen my mom purchase a fruit roll-up in her life. But I go down to Mark's house, bro. Mark's got all the video games.
Got it all.
Mark's got the snacks, bro. Oh my gosh. Yo, when my mom started to buy good snacks, I was like, yo, you guys want to, we just got off the bus. You want to go to my house for a minute and we can watch some TV or something and eat some snacks before you go home? And it's like, okay. It's on the way. I'll make a stop, Chris's house. Only one.
And then it's like,
home,
yeah. But then when you're there, though, it's like you become bros. It's almost like that moment. Like, you still hang out with Mark. I still hang out with Luke. He's one of my best friends, right?
Yeah.
And it's like being together for so long. It's almost like you feel safe.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It's like I feel safe there. Like, I feel like, in getting to know his family, it's like I feel like I can go there, and it's like I just feel like I'm one of them. And I think that's as a parent, like, you need to welcome children, and obviously you can't be feeding football teams every night, but it's one of those things that I think you can, if you're the type of parent that, and you have the resources, obviously, to support that, I think that it's a really awesome thing for, kids to, and it's almost, I think about it this way, like, if I have the resources and it's like, dude, I'm just buying like, fruit roll-ups and chicken nuggets or whatever it is, and, and the homies come hang out at my house, it's like, hey, I know what's going on. The homies are coming hanging out at my house. I know as a parent they're safe.
Yeah.
And it's like I can meet their parents. Their parents can trust me. It's like, hey, I know what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And I would much rather, them like do shit at my house than
be out and about.
I don't know where they are. Yeah, exactly.
Out with John's mom, but John's mom is a little,
wacky.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. Yo, so I think that, we talked about a lot of awesome stuff today, and like thinking about our listeners and just generally, I think what's important to think about the relationship that you have with your father. Like how has that shaped you? And thinking about that relationship, think about, what your father and maybe other fathers that you've seen have done well and have not done well, and how would that make you either a better father or a better parent? And then ultimately, if you did have the opportunity to spend time with your father on Father's Day, that's great. I think you should appreciate it, and maybe reach out to him every once in a while, because I think that as fathers, like no matter what relationship that you have, see how he's doing, and fathers are a big role in our lives, and it's important to
and they're people
reflect on that and
too.
think on that.
They like to hear from their sons every now and then.
Sons, daughters, yeah.
Yeah, more than a text. Just reach out and say, hey, what's going on, or drop a line. My dad will do that every now and then. Like when he's coming home from work, he'll call because he knows I'm up at like 10 o'clock. He's like, oh, what's going on? Yeah, okay, doing good. How's school? Grades are good. Just checking. How's that girl you saw last week? Everything good?
Yeah.
And I enjoy those conversations. It's he's invested, and I would like to do the same with my kids.
Let's do it, bro. We're gonna have this podcast again when we're fathers.
Oh yeah, keep it rolling.
Keep it rolling. Awesome. And with that, Chris, love you, man. Have a good rest of your weekend. For our listeners, like, subscribe. Really glad that you're listening to our podcast. Really do the things, call to action, really. So think about the relationship with your father. We hope this was helpful. Like, subscribe. If you want to rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, do that. But
hit it
thanks.
up.
All right.
Thanks a lot, guys.
See ya.
See ya.